Welcome to Open Mind Industries podcast, The Mind Unleashed. Sit back, relax, and unleash your mind. Hey guys, welcome to episode 63 of The Mind Unleashed. In this episode, I have a good friend of mine from the old T2 days, Ben Patient. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, it happens. I do apologize, Ben. So in this one, he'll be talking about TEDx. He did a TEDx talk on YouTube. The link will be down below in the description. And there will be a special audio file after the podcast. We talk about everything from his stunt work days from T2, and just really have an all-around awesome chat about 3D printing, etc. Hope you guys enjoy. I had a fun time talking with him. Sit back, relax. Here comes the episode. So, it's doing its thing.
Wait, raining in Florida, really?
Well, early in the morning, can you believe it?
It's just that part of the day, right?
Exactly. I didn't even know where you guys were anymore. Where you guys moved to?
We're in Denver.
Oh, so you're right where my girlfriend's parents live.
Mile High City, man. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a good place. Maybe.
We don't have the humidity.
Well, yeah, I mean, the humidity is... Well, you don't want that anymore. But you guys
Either way,
you guys get the snow now, though.
Yeah, I guess we get it, whether or not we want it.
Yeah. Yes, everything is good. Everything looks good on the levels. So, yeah, everything sounds good. I'm ready when you are, whenever you feel comfortable.
Cool.
And
yeah, man. I'm ready anytime.
Okay.
Let's kick this thing off.
Oh my God! It's been over a year. I've been trying to get you on and schedules together, and I'm like, who do I want to get on? Who do I want to talk to?
Yeah.
And then when I saw your TED talk, and I'm like, dude, I want to talk about that, like what he's done.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Like, for those who don't know, and already recording, screens recording, Ben, we worked together at Terminator. He became a lead and did multi-things and management, and found out he was also John Connor, and I was like, in Japan, I was like, holy crap. But what I want to dig down to is, for those who don't know, he did a TEDx talk. What was that about? And how did that all begin?
So it kind of started with my leadership experience, being on both sides of the leadership equation, if you will, as an employee, and kind of seeing like, I really wish my manager would do X, Y, or Z, and then having some experience as a manager and a lead in a few different environments, and looking at the things that I missed, as a manager, that as I kind of passed through certain situations, looking back on those, thinking, gosh, I really wish I would have done this different, or I could have done this better. Paired that with some of my experience and education. So I was at Rollins College. I did my bachelor's degree there, and then I did the master's degree in human resources.
Oh, wow.
So, just looking at those things and kind of trying to put some of the research with the practical experience. Because as many of us know, you go to school, you learn something, and the theory's nice. But then when you go to put it in a practical application, it's like, it doesn't quite work as well as it does in theory.
When you were doing the school thing, did they kind of take you into the field? Did they kind of give you scenarios, or?
So there was a lot of scenarios and a lot of, I guess, previous examples that we looked, kind of used as case studies. There was a little bit of work that we did, that we worked with a local company to help them solve one of their problems. So just, I think, getting the hands-on, and then at the same time I was working, so looking at the things that I'm learning and my work environment, and trying to pair those things together to see how does that all work? How can we make it happen? And we talk about these idealistic scenarios, and it's like, well, that's nice, but how do we just make a small improvement, in our current environments, instead of just going for the goal and saying like, oh, it could be just so wonderful and happy, and unfortunately, it's not always realistic.
No, it's sad when you look at companies, and that's what I kind of want to dig out with you. Is like when you went from your one degree to another degree, were there more outlets from that of getting the next degree, and there were more things that opened up?
I think in some areas, yes, and in some areas, when you're looking at the job opportunities and that sort of thing, there are a few people that were in my cohort that they went straight from the bachelor's degree to the master's degree. So really nothing in between.
Yeah.
And a lot of their challenge as we were ending that program was a lot of businesses and companies want more experience. So they might want a bachelor's or master's, but they, 3 to 5 years of experience is required. So it kind of becomes
I
a
think that's
catch
standard
22.
nowadays. Even if you have like a marketing degree, it's like, oh, we want you in the field, but you don't have any field experience. How do I get field
Yeah.
experience if you're not giving me the experience?
Yeah.
And that,
So it's kind of that vicious cycle of, it's I think becoming more and more, you've got to get those internships
it was
or
rough for
that
you
sort of
though.
thing.
I saw you doing a lot of the stuff with Universal and getting into the lead, stuff like that, management, trying to get into HR field and learning a bit more about that. And
Sure.
how did that
Yeah.
teach you with the degrees of going from a company like that into the field that you're in now?
So I still work in human resources. Um, and I think, as far as like decision making and, really the drill with school is how to pack in um, your tasks and streamline your
Mm,
work. Um, your my undergrad was in organizational behavior, so a lot of it was HR theory, motivation theories, that sort of thing. So for me, the transition from the undergrad to the graduate degree, it was almost just like a repeat. Um, of course, we went more in depth, and there was a little bit more weight to the things that we looked at and what we did. But I
mm,
think having that foundation kind of made it a little bit easier for me.
mm.
And then working while doing both degrees, it really just helped me learn how do I streamline my work, because it's all squished together and you've got to get it done.
Pretty much, and you were pretty motivated doing it. You were like, I had this going on and that going on, and being able to
So
combine it
you,
all was insane.
yeah, yeah. So it's just about. I mean, for me, I really learned about how to make the most impact in the shortest amount of time, how to get that work done, and I think that's something that I did that before in my personal life,
Mm.
but just kind of learning to transition that and then maximize and leverage, that practice was helpful.
Do you think, with the degrees now and what you've learned, does it help you more in personal life, or is it like something that you push more forward to your motivation?
Yeah, I think like everything in life, it becomes a combination. So I think it has impacted how I think about things and problem solve. Um, it's helped to dig in a little bit more about like the why, the how, the what if,
Mm.
and kind of work those scenarios, and then also push myself,
Mm.
because it definitely was an experience and challenging. And there are, as nice as it is to be done, there are
You
times
never
going
stop
to,
learning.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
As you said,
exactly.
theory
And
never stops. It's like, okay, well, we have this new program or this new idea, and especially you brought a couple things up with your new stuff, and I'm like, this is
hmm
intriguing.
yeah, so I think it's, like I draw inspiration from, like my friends that I see doing stuff. Like for you, for example, I see you doing the 3D printing, and I think I'm not necessarily going after 3D printing, but I see you going after things that are important to you,
Yeah,
that are making a
yeah.
difference. So to me, that kind of, I think, has some accountability and a challenge of like, what am I doing, and what could I be doing more of?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those things are just for us. It's like, I want to make a difference,
Mm-hmm.
and that's important to me. So I'm going to go for it and give it a try, and feel good about taking that step and challenging myself or taking that risk. And if it works out, then that's amazing. And if it doesn't, then
It's a
it's
life lesson.
you,
Yeah, you have to.
yeah.
The thing is, I've learned from you, and I've watched your talk, and I'm just like, made a lot of sense. And you have to, like 3D printing and R&D work that I'm into, and it's like, I get told no about 90 times a day. And everybody's like, wait, what do you mean? I
Yeah.
said, I send out emails to companies who do R&D, and D, and I'm like, hey, I'm interested in this film and how it would work for this application. Or, no, we're not interested. You're not. Your numbers aren't high enough, or you don't have enough followers following you
Sure.
to. And it sucks. I said, keep going. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
That one no turns into 90 no's. That one yes might help you in this area, but you
Yeah.
gotta keep moving forward.
And
Maybe
that's key. And
yeah,
yeah.
it
And I
really
think what you said about R&D is like, life is R&D, and we never really can expect to arrive at that finished product, but we just got to keep going through those iterations to say
Mm-hmm.
like, what can I do a little bit different, or what have I learned, as you mentioned, what have I learned from this experience?
Mm-hmm. And it was so when you did the whole TED talk, how did that all come about, and who did you speak with, and what was the breakdown of just getting everything set up?
So that's a good question. Um, there was there was probably about 3 years
Wow.
prior to that where I had submitted different ideas for, how do we like look at the workplace different.
Mm-hmm.
I was attending multiple HR conferences, and so you've got that paired with the school and a lot of theories, and you're looking at research of the workforce has been disengaged. I think we've got like 30% of the workforce on average in the United States, which is 30% is not really that high, but
No, think about it. Yeah, no.
and we're the highest in the world according to that research, which is kind of
What?
like it's kind of shocking because you think like only 30%. So that means you've got a third of the workforce that's really like driving forward to get the results. You've got probably about half that are just kind of doing the minimum,
Mm.
and then you've got some that are active, what they call actively disengaged, who are trying to like they just they don't want to do anything at all,
Yeah.
and
Just
and
get
that's the
paycheck
weight
and
that
get out.
everybody else, yeah,
Yeah.
if that.
Yeah.
So just looking at all those things, I kind of was coming up with some of my own ideas of we're doing the same thing, we're getting the same types of results. I've got ideas to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So there was about 3 years of different applications of for speaking at different HR events and that, and like you said, you get the 90 no's,
Yeah.
and so just kind of tweaking those ideas, changing it, and for the TEDx talk, it just aligned with the theme of their of that production that they were doing that
Mm.
year. It lined up well. I actually, didn't expect to hear from them
Really?
just because of the past 3 years of applications, and I just thought, well, I've got an idea. Let me just keep sharing it and keep looking for
Kind of
opportunities,
have to.
and
Yeah. Like you've already gone that far step.
and so tracking those, I actually followed up with them and just said, hey, I haven't heard from you guys. Just wanted to check in, and they said. Back in an email, they said, "Oh yeah, sorry, we're a little bit behind, but we'd love to have you." And I was kind of like,
Oh.
oh man. So that's when the nerves really just set in. I was like, okay, shoot, this is real.
That's
I
insane.
better
Holy
get my
crap.
stuff together.
Wow. That was like a
So
night and day thing. Like, wait, no, yeah, okay.
yeah, I mean, I
Put my
was,
money where my mouth is, I guess.
yeah. So it was, it was kind of a shock at having different ideas and having put those together and expecting a no,
Hmm.
and then getting a yes. And I think
Yeah, you're like,
oftentimes
"Ugh."
oftentimes our mentality is like we go in expecting a yes, just just in general, and we get the no, and it's
I think it's
it,
just being confident. It's like you go in and you like, let me present myself as best I can. Let me show the
yep,
work that I've done, and it's like all that confidence, and you're like, I think no, and then you second guess yourself, and then when they finally say yeah, you're like,
yeah.
it's like okay, now I have
It's
to
like,
kind of,
oh, what?
oh wait, I have to show my work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think for me that's been key just throughout a lot of my
Hmm.
experiences is you look at the term luck and that saying of like luck is the preparation meeting the opportunity,
Oh yeah.
and that's really what it was is just having gone through that, being ready, and then that opportunity arising, uh, and then going for it.
How long was the setup process? Like finally, once you finally got your application through, did you go through like a pre-stage day or any kind of like, you had a 30-minute spiel and then break it down to like 10 minutes? Because I know some people had like an hour, but they were like, oh, I had to break it down to like 40, 45 minutes.
Yeah. So this was and the way that the format is if you're using research, it has to either be your own or you have to get permission to use research.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my
Exactly like 3D
uh,
printing work, yeah.
yeah, so
Exactly like it.
a lot of what I had kind of come to the conclusion on was based on other research and kind of putting different pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
So there was kind of a challenge because with those parameters, I had to cut out some of that because it's not my research. I didn't do the studies, and then so I just cut those out and really a lot of it was as I peel back the layers of the onion and doing the research, and I kind of was coming up with this idea and the 4 steps, and looking back on my experience and just seeing how, it's really the basis of an iterative process, and going back to looking at R&D and life being R&D is, if we're not looking back and kind of fixing the things that we
Evaluating what
did,
we had, yeah.
yeah, then we're going to make the same mistakes, and we probably still will make the same mistakes, but we can make them to a lesser
degree,
extent.
yeah.
And yeah, so from the time I was notified, I had 5 weeks
Whoa.
to put together 10 to 12 minutes. So
That doesn't sound like, even in podcast, like, just getting a conversation down to like 30 minutes. Because when I started
yeah,
podcast, everybody's like, keep it down to 30 minutes. And then when you have a good scenario, a good person, you can bring it to 45 to an hour. And I'm like, okay, where
sure,
does demographic drop? And I'm just like, oof.
yeah, and I think, and you would know, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to stretch something out and explain it. When you got to condense it
Oh,
down, it's like,
goodness.
oh boy, okay,
Oh,
how do
God.
you
Were you
hit
like
the points with
sweating
the same
bullets, or
impact?
when you finally had your script together, and you're just like, did you feel like it was too long? Did you feel like, how many iterations did you go through?
I went through a few, and looking back, there's things I would have done differently for sure.
Yeah.
But there was a few, because you want to make it, like anything, you want to keep it interesting, but you still want to hit those same points and and try to make sure that they have that same impact. So there was, that's the first couple of days. I was kind of like, oh man, how am I going to do this? Should I do this? I don't know.
I went this far. I did all the applications. They said yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first couple of days I was like, okay, this is like a heavy lift, but then just started chipping away, and did a few iterations along the way, and got, reached out to some people, got feedback, got, ideas and thoughts, and just kind of started chipping it down, and shifting, and adjusting. So it definitely was not anywhere near what the first iteration was. A lot of big changes at first, and then a lot of the small changes to kind of tweak and that sort of thing along the way. So
When you're finally there in like the day, and you finally get the headset on, they're like, okay, you're like person number 6 that's going on. You only have this many minutes. Here's the light you need to look at. Here's how much time. How did that feel?
I think the night before we did a run through,
Yeah.
and that was probably the most nerve-wracking process.
Really.
But they have you stand on a red carpet, and so to practice and that sort of thing, I actually was recording myself those probably about 2 to 3 weeks before. I'd got a red carpet,
Oh wow.
just a red rug.
It's like the universal VIP experience.
I know. And I set up my camera. I got a tripod. I set it up on a table, and I would go through my speech, and I'd do it as though it was real, and give my best effort. So the most nerve-wracking part was the night before, but I kind of just felt like, I had prepped as much as I could.
Yeah.
I went through all the things that I was supposed to do, and so hopefully that would hopefully those would help me when the
Yeah.
time actually came.
I watched it, and I watched it again the other day because I'm like, I can't find it anywhere, and I had to literally go on through your page through Facebook, and then I finally found it on YouTube, and I'm like, okay, I think they deleted it, and then no one deleted it, so it will be posted in the podcast if those who haven't seen it. But there's one part I was like, the camera zooms out, and I'm like, you're thinking it's like a huge crowd. It's not. It's probably like what, 300 people auditorium.
Yeah.
Maybe? And
So they probably have about 200 people max, and there are limitations for like the venues who are hosting their TEDx, which are the independent events.
yeah.
So they have some limitations. So yeah, there's probably about 150, 200 people or so.
Yeah, it was interesting because the one part you're like, okay, it's like I'm gonna talk about He-Man and do this. And it's like, and it's like, all right, that was great. Y'all need to stand up. And everybody was like, do I get up? Do I sit down? Like one guy like in the front had a camera, and he was like, do I put this down or I put it up? And I started laughing and laughing. I'm like, Ben's just having the ball. So
Yeah.
you were so natural. You were so fluid, and I think it was just, like you said, the process of it. Were you shitting your pants in there, or just like?
Like I think really the nerves were the night before, and the parts that you don't see is like beforehand as people were coming in. there was the those who were speaking were out. We were out kind of mingling with the crowd. I actually went to I think it was Tim Hortons around the corner from the venue and just got some coffee. Brought some coffee back for some of the other speakers. Had some donuts and stuff.
Aw.
Because having been a performer, I think the nerves for me have always been right before, and going back to my years, I did competitive martial arts, and so I was tournaments for dozen or so years, and so it's for me the nerves set in, and then it's like once it's go time, like your brain just switches to I know what I got to do. I got to get out there and do it.
That was me. I did a public talk, and somebody's like, "Oh, I need you to talk at a Fringe festival." And somebody handed me a microphone, and I'm like, "Well, you podcast, you're easy." I'm like, what do I say? And then no, just talk about. And I just kind of started flowing, and they're like, "Dude, you." And then they couldn't get the mic away from me, and they're like, "Dude, you were just natural." I'm like, I didn't know what you wanted me to say. There was no A, B, or C. I had to say, "Oh, talk about your 3D printing or what you do," and I'm like, this is what we do. This is our goal. Blah blah blah. And then I was like, "Follow me on this. Follow me on this. Follow me on this. Follow this person." And I was like, ugh. But that nerd getting over the nerves, like throwing into you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good because you know your stuff.
Yeah.
And so like I think it's easy to get intimidated, like you said, and have that initial shock moment where you're like, oh man. But you know your stuff, you,
Yeah.
and the things that you do. So then, I guess just not trying to make it more than what it is, and just say, like, hey, I'm going to talk about myself and just be real.
Yeah.
That's neat. Good job, man.
Well,
Do you have a recording of that?
I do not. It was so damn quick, and it was this year, and they're like, "Hey, here's a microphone." I'm like, Why? When my buddy's like, "Oh, I'm just I'm hosting, so here's like talk about your business or talk about what you're doing," and I'm like, "Oh, look at his thing, and what he does, and he's working on this, and he's testing out this," and I'm like, "Don't do that to me." I was like, I'm a nobody. I am a no one.
Don't put me on the spot.
You were a fringe performer. It was a fun experience, but I was just like, everybody can hear me. Crap. There's like 700 of you. We're all drunk. Okay. Anyway, follow us here. Thank you.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah.
Do you think you'd want to do more of that sort of stuff in the future?
A few friends have offered me the idea because they have listened to the podcast, and I when I made the podcast, it was just for me to speak and just kind of talk about nerdy stuff and what we're working on and what I'm working on in general, and just have fun with it. And
Yeah.
somebody's like, "Oh, I don't like you use profanity." I'm like, I like using profanity because I like a conversation to be genuine. I don't like someone to hold back on a story or an idea. Because a lot of podcasts I listen to, or a lot of stories from the news I listen to, people are like, "Oh, can I curse?" Because I really want to explain this scenario that really happened, but they get restricted, and I don't like that. I like a flowing conversation of what really happened, or make the person feel very comfortable in the environment so they can get what they need across. And I went from there, and then somebody was like, "Hey, I need you to hop on." And a friend of mine in Valencia, she does interpreting and stuff. She's like, "Somebody wants to have you in their class to talk." And I'm like, "What do I talk about?" I was like, the company's not really that successful yet. I was like, "I'm still building it up from here." She's like, "No, but that's what they want to talk about. They want to kind of, you're starting from scratch, ground zero. What did you learn, or how were your failures, or where did you go? I want, how did people start? Like, what should they know?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I just accepted the offer because I was like, I'm not ready yet to even speak about that in front of all these kids, these college kids. Yeah, I would probably get some great feedback and some great criticism because that's what you need. For those who do YouTube pages and stuff like that, criticism is the best thing you're going to take it. If you can't take it, it's probably not the field for you. And I always tell people, the truth is, don't read the comments. It's like, never read the comments. Even if they're good or bad, you know what you've done. And keep doing it. When you did your thing, was it like, when you were finally done, did you get a lot of compliments? Did people kind of constructive criticism, or at the end of it, or?
There were a few people that I had the opportunity to speak with afterward, and they kind of just said, like, it was along the lines of what I had already kind of thought about the process. Is this is something we already do, but it's nice to have it specifically outlined, and I've mentioned it a few times, so I'll just kind of spell it out here. It's reflecting and looking back on our experiences, evaluating ourselves based on our own criteria or a kind of a set standard of guidelines, developing a plan and kind of looking at what that looks like moving forward, and then implementing that. And I think a lot of people get stuck on, they get really good at planning, and then they get the they just kind of freeze or they don't step forward because it's they're evaluating too many options, or they're kind of what they call it, analysis paralysis.
Yeah. I think
So I
always
think
you're second guessing yourself, and that's the problem. I do it a lot myself, and it's like, will part A go to part B, and in the end
yeah,
become the final result, and you're just kind of like, I don't want to fail here, but I'm going to fail either way. You don't want that failure at the end of it, but you have to fail.
sure. Yeah, you have to fail to learn and grow. And I wanted to say, with some of the stuff that you're doing, I don't think that we should just look at these people like Warren Buffett or Mark Zuckerberg or whatever to learn from, because sure, you're only at the beginning stages
Mm,
of what you're doing,
mm,
but nobody is in the same scenario. So I think it's so valuable to hear experiences from people who are starting it, the challenges that they're going through,
yeah.
because it's easy to look at these like basically megastars of success, and then if we're looking at that, we're thinking, gosh, man, I'm nowhere near that. It's just not as tangible. We can't connect with
No,
that
and
as
that's the thing.
easily.
It's you got to start from somewhere. And the thing that I started the podcast, I want to say about it's been over 2 years now, and I'm only up to this will be episode 63, I believe. And everybody's like,
Okay.
"Oh my God, like how many have you done?" And I'm like, "I just started from scratch and said, screw it, let me go through the
Yeah.
iteration of process." I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not here." And surprisingly, I checked our analytics since I moved it over to another hosting site. I told my friend the other day, I said, "Dude, I'm at 4,001 downloads." He goes, "Wait, what?" I went,
That's awesome.
that's
That's
terrifying.
really
That
awesome.
people listen. There's no reviews or anything. That's fine. I don't mind about that. It's just
Yeah.
scary that people listen. Am I saying something correct? I have no idea. Is it something for the car when you're clearing your brain? Maybe. I have no
Yeah.
idea. Um, but you start and you just people what they want, and it's sad that everybody wants this entrepreneurial success. They want it quick, fast. They want to be this rising star, but it's not. That's not how it goes. And they don't see,
Yeah.
how Zuckerberg actually got there. It wasn't just Zuckerberg. It was somebody else
Right.
helping him. Somebody else, and they don't show with who people that actually shoved you forward. Who people who guided you forward.
Yeah.
And it's like what you said. It's like you went out there and you got your degrees, and people were, let me see how this TEDx thing was going, and you spoke to other people, and then you put it together, and it was like, is this good? And they're like, yeah, it's good, try this. And, they're the ones that pushed you to find the final product,
Hmm.
made you feel comfortable, and people just need to relax and just and take it as it comes. It's going to be a long iteration process. It's like
Yeah.
there's projects I'm still working on that it's like I'm talking to R&D people and I'm like, looking at your product, I want to try. And they're like, well, not right now. Or, it's too much. We don't really want to use that to iterate for this. And a lot of companies,
Sure.
sadly, nowadays they want they're now looking at the YouTube stars and the people on Facebook, and they look at that and they're like, well, we want higher numbers, or we want more um, star power to get our product off the ground. Sadly, the sad thing is they need to look at smaller independent companies that are really trying to build something.
Hmm.
And like I said, I get 90 notes pretty much a day, and I sit there and once I don't email back angrily, I just email back. You really should take another look at something because this would help you in another area you don't know you even noticed. It's
Hmm.
free advertising for you. I'm gaining nothing except for product experience or whatever. It's sad that a lot of companies don't think that way. They think about the marketing goal. The end of the day, their numbers need to be high. For
Yeah.
profitability, and it's sad that companies look that way. They don't look at the what got them there.
Yeah. Well, and I think the challenge that we look at is, you know, like even as an individual, we look at these influencers, if you
Hmm.
will. But I think that there's only so much we can look at these influencers before there's
The
and
curtain gets
in
pulled
a,
back, and you're like, oh, their life isn't
yeah.
that great. They're struggling just as hard.
Yeah, and when they get to the point where they're advertising multiple products or this or that, there just kind of gets to be a point where we can't necessarily feel that same connection with them as before, and
Mm.
so it's like, are they influencing, or are these like semi celebrities now, and kind of, I think we'll probably see a little bit of a shift with that in the next couple of years.
What do since your TED Talk was over and what was the application that you started? I saw the application you started building for management so they could talk better with their employees. How is that coming along?
So that came along well. There's some back. I didn't do that by myself.
Okay. The
I'm
team.
not.
It was. I'd like to know more about that because I saw it and I said, "Oh my God, this is what he's been working on with a team." So
Yeah. So initially, I had designed it, and kind of had these pictures in my head of how what it would look like,
yeah, the UI and stuff
and
like that.
yeah, and what it would do. Um, and I would say like I had basically I went to Home Depot and bought this white panel board. It was a 4x6 panel board and used it as a whiteboard, and it works pretty good as a whiteboard. It's a lot cheaper than having to buy an actual whiteboard.
Whiteboard. Yeah.
It's like 15 bucks versus
That's what I bought for
150.
the
So,
wall. I have literally a polyurethane little piece of plastic. Somebody was like, "Wow!" I was like, "Take dry erase, and it's so much cheaper. Just take some hot
oh
glue." And
yeah,
I said, "And you can reuse the board. You're not spending $100.
absolutely,
Yeah, it's so much cheaper."
yeah. And now they've got the whiteboard and chalkboard paint, and of course, I wasn't in a spot where I could paint my walls, but that's another option if you're listening. Uh, so I had like drawn pictures, and there was a lot of that kind of was another one of those things where I looked at the things that I had done well or not done. Or I remember getting a performance review where my manager really didn't know a thing about me, didn't know
Really?
a thing about the things I had contributed to. And it was a little surprising to me, just because it's like I'd been there a year,
Mm.
and they didn't really know.
Do you feel like you got lost in ether a little bit?
Lost in the details, or
Ether, like the employment.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I remember as a manager there was a guy who always tried to do the best he could, and would be willing to try anything new and challenge. And I remembered, okay, this guy likes diet soda,
Mm.
but I couldn't remember, did he like Diet Coke, or was it Diet Pepsi? And one of them he liked, and the other one he like
Oh,
just hated.
hated.
So you've got that stuck in your mind, like, okay, I know it's diet, but that's not good enough. So really what the app was about is building that, kind of, it was about connecting. And sometimes, we're on our phones, or we're getting pulled in so many different directions. And I think a lot more has happened since 2008, where a lot of roles and jobs were compressed because of the recession. So
Mm-hmm.
people are having to do more with less. And of course, as we look at lean and, the Kaizen, or any of those types of processes, we're expected to do more with less. We're pulled
No
in more
joke. Yeah,
areas,
that's
and
been the
we've got
universal mindset lately. Legitly.
so so even being a leader or being in HR, I was looking at there is a disconnection. How do we even reference some of those small things before a conversation? Without a notebook, and we're on our phones, and our phones are used for so many different things. So that's kind of where the platform came from, and it was about knowing the specifics, like not just knowing you as an employee, but knowing you a little bit as a person. Like
Mhm.
what kind of things do you like? What do you have favorite movies? Do you have favorite candy, snacks, chips, or whatever? Because if I want to give you something that's meaningful to you, it's got to be meaningful to you. And
Right.
it's I've seen situations where employees got rewarded with a Starbucks gift card, and they don't drink coffee or tea.
Yeah.
And so, that doesn't diminish the intent, but it does kind of diminish that recipient's feeling of, wow, I got something that is
I
not
really
very
can't
useful
use.
to
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
I
And
get those
so
quite a
it
lot.
just it takes away from what it really could be.
Mm.
And so that's kind of what that was all about, is really tuning into that individual and their performance and their goals, and personalizing it, because I think we need a little bit of that individualization.
You do, and when you were with the company for, like you said, you were there for what, a year? We're still at a year then.
Yeah, it was a year. It was that 1 year review period.
That's how I feel. Like I get reviews every year, and everybody knows the company I work for, Universal. And it's kind of like when you switch, they do a transition every year. It happens about 3 times a year. They'll move management over to another area, and every year I get my review, and the manager doesn't even know me. I walk in,
Sure.
they're like, "Hey, so we haven't met. I'm so and so," and you sit down, Hi, how are you? And then you go through the whole entire list of what you did right or wrong, or you exceed expectations, or you've done this, or you've done this. Nobody really cares about that. It's like, hey, how do I improve as an employee? Nothing really. You've been good all year. You know your job. So you know your job. You know how to deal with clients, customers, guests, etc. And then at the end of it, you're just looking to see what your percentage raise is. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, there's my percentage raise. I mean, let's be honest. That's pretty much what everybody looks for is that raise. And they try all these things with management to brighten the employee, and something did happen. I will bring this up to those. So every year we have a summer peak challenge, and it's like, okay, we need capacity,
Okay.
capacity, capacity. And Ben has worked for Universal, so he understands that mindset of what they do
Yeah.
to motivate the employee. And you don't know the employee very well. You know of them after a few weeks, stuff like that. But managers forget your name. You're an ID number. Um, so what we would do is we'd have to get capacity goals, guest service goals, guest listening goals. Fill up these. It was I think Infinity War was about to come out, so we had like these.
Okay.
Yeah, we had like these rings we had to fill up, and the effed up part was, the fricked up part was, is like we're working our butts off. Like first crew would come in, which I would be part of. We get these counts. It's 72 per ride vehicle. You get them in, you get them out, get them in, get them out. Full shows, full shows, full shows, because they didn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
Finally got them all in. Built up the one guest service goal for the guest positive, which those aren't easy to get because people come from all across the world and they don't speak.
Sure.
There's a language barrier. There's this, and you're like, okay, I've done something right. Can you go to guest services? Let them know. And there's another thing Universal's trying to do with Twitter, and now that Disney does their Twitter thing, so you can comment faster on the
Mm-hmm.
employee. So we fill them all up, and we're like, okay, we get an arcade night at the arcade, and Ben knows what that is. So we all get brought over, and they're like, okay, for those who aren't going to make it, we're supposed to like pie a manager or get the manager wed. It's something that employee, it motivates the employee. Like, okay, I really like this boss. I want to pie him with like whipped cream or whatever. It's something you can do. So we got all the challenges. We got like a stupid pizza party or something like that. Everybody was kind of like, whatever, cool. The one thing we all got excited for was the arcade night, because you can go with your coworkers and people that you get to mingle with through like 3 4 months of hell. It literally is hell, guys. Ben knows it's hell on earth. It's 53,000
You're
people a day.
you're out there in the hunt.
You're out
I'm
there,
sorry. You're out there in the heat, and
yeah,
you're
and
trying to hurry up.
you're fighting, and it's you're working with your employee. You got people next to you. You're squeezing through. It's a job that I can not compare to the world. I think DMV maybe, or being a surgeon maybe, is the only two jobs. I even talked to a surgeon. I'm like, this job is like being at the DMV or like being a surgeon in the triage, And he's like, really? I'm like, dude, how many people do you see a day? And what's your heart rate? And he's going through. He's like, yeah, you're probably right. You're getting screamed at. You're sweating. You're just trying to keep your calm and try not to get fired. This is the end of the day. So we get everything done, and then finally they're like, hey, there's gonna be an arcade night. We're like 4 or 5 months behind. This is what got lost in the ether because the managers
Uh-huh.
did a transition and yada yada. And finally they're like, well, Universal doesn't want to pay for blah, so now they're gonna make it an area thing, which your area. Even those people that didn't, achieve their goal, still were able to
Yeah.
perform in it. And I was like, that's kind of messed up. This is supposed to be for our team and another team, but now you're compressing it into one thing, because you're trying to save budget or time.
Yeah.
And it really made us feel at the end of it like what the. And a lot of us didn't go because the arcades aren't that big in the theme park, and it felt kind of demoralizing. It was like we did all this
Yeah.
work, and we've got a high five, but at the end of the day, you're just like y'all could have made it a little more meaningful of just
Yeah.
even putting it the one arcade inside the one area that we had. That would have been nicer for some of us because it's 600 or like 1,000 employees that have to squeeze into this thing. And you have to wait your turn. You have to, and it's kind of like it's not really worth coming out here at 9 o'clock at night and playing because
Yeah.
you don't feel this love or thing. But
Yeah.
that's the life.
It breaks trust, and I think like when we look at it on like that personal relationship level, because us as individuals, we connect with the companies we work with or our managers on a personal level.
Mm.
While when you look at it from the organization perspective, there's multiple layers, multiple different people making decisions that have to get approved or not approved. And I think that's kind of where some of the disconnect comes in. I mean, is that sound like it's true in your
Oh,
experience?
very, very much so. And I think that's the thing that motivates me with open mind is I talk with my business partner, I talk with friends such as yourself who are in the HR, and another friend of mine who has their HR degree, and I said, this is what I don't want to do. I want my employees to feel comfortable when they walk in. If it ever does become into a facility, a building, I want employees to walk in and feel like they can write on the wall real quick, right on a white wall, of like, hey,
Yeah.
Ali, here's an idea. What do you think? Or so and so department, what do you think? And I think it's everything is just disconnected in the ether, and I don't know why management. I know why management. Because I think they lose trust at the upper level, and it just trickles down. It all at the end of the day becomes how much profit are we making? How can we cut costs? And how can we minimize, our profitability? And it seems like that, and then it goes down to the next level of management, and then
Yeah.
they get yelled at, and then your leads, who will be your daily bosses, who know you better than your bosses, which is sad, but that's
Yeah.
the way companies run. I've been.
Well, yeah, it's not a bad thing, and I think, but in the same breath, there's a different way that it could be done and get the same result. Businesses are there to make money, so you can still reduce costs and and watch that bottom line. But the approach, I think, is key.
Yeah. How to do it, I have no idea. I look at a lot of companies and just like, why would you treat
Sure.
your employees like that? Like, why don't you, it's like you're the boss or you're the CEO. You should, at least you should take a little bit of suffering too, but make sure you're in the grunt with them too, so your employees feel
Yeah.
more motivated. And a lot of
Yeah.
companies, I've seen a lot of small businesses that are more successful, and I talked to a lot of CEOs through Twitter. A lot of people have hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. Has been my big two for 3D filament or R&D design, because a lot of them are like, hey, what are you working on? This is what you're working on. Okay, you're working on crutch tips, or you're working on a material. Have you tried this? No, I have not. We're starting up. We're willing to help you out with a little bit of product. We'll
Hmm.
get you in touch with our marketing. And there's teams of like 20 or 30. They're not big teams. And I think companies like that, they understand, okay, they know what it's like the grunt workers to be. But in the end, they want to make sure everybody feels as contributing as possible, because that's how a
Yeah.
company grows. And if the CEO forgets, like, hey, this is what got me here, I think that's where they lose themselves as managers, because they're now thinking of this, and this. Yeah, myself in general, I think of 40 different things a day, and I'm just like, well, I cannot forget what got me here, ever. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of companies forget that. They become these multi-billion-dollar companies, and they're just like, I don't know employee one. Although I should know employee one, I don't really have, like you said, the know-how or the application to know, you know.
Hmm.
And I think,
And it is easy, I think, to focus on the process,
mm,
or focused on here's what we need to get done, and lose that human element. And I think whether in one situation or another, we've probably all done that. Of leave me alone. I'm working on something.
yeah,
To family or friends. So if we can do it to those close relationships, we can do it to those ones who are not as close. But I think the key is to be able to recognize that and you know come back to the work's not going to get done without the people.
no, and that's the one thing most companies don't realize. What do you feel like, since you've learned, in the HR element, when you go to hire someone, or when the company's looking for something, what do you look for in that element?
Well, I think I'm still. I think the key to remember is I'm still constrained by what the parameters of the organization. But I think the number one thing that people should have, and this is me personal, is a willingness to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can solve problems and you've got a willingness to learn, then there's really not many limitations. And I've been hired for roles that I didn't know a thing about it when I started, and they said, "Hey, you've got a good attitude. You're willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
We can teach you, a process. We can't teach you to have a good attitude or being willing to learn and
Yeah.
grow." So I think you might have to sit and plug away just like anything else in life. But if you've got a good attitude, your willingness to learn, and you can solve problems,
Yeah.
I mean, in a lot of situations, Google has been my best friend.
Oh wow.
Not the company, the web
The
engine.
software.
Yeah, but just being able to look things up and say, like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And I would say both in my personal life, and in my professional life. I mean, everything from we had a car where a gasket on the brake pedal broke. The gasket broke, and basically what the gasket was is to keep the lights or make the lights go off. So when it broke, the brake lights went on and stayed on. And so basically I went on to Google, like, how do you get this light off? Because to go to the dealership, it was $50.
Yeah.
But, I went on Google, found some step-by-step guides, went to YouTube, saw somebody do it, and I said, oh, man, you just get a washer and screw it on and you're all set. And that worked like a charm.
Saved
So
that $50.
it saved $50. I only had to wash it. So I think it's just things like that, is being able to solve problems and figure it out and try to be a little creative in the process.
So when you finally like go through the hiring process and you see someone walk in, it's kind of maybe the demeanor just feels a little not confident or they're sweating a little bit. How do you, as an interviewer, how do you calm them down or make them feel like genuine or comfortable? What are things that you would do?
I think the key is not to make it that sterile, overly business, overly professional structure. It's got to be.
I see it all the time at Universal. It's sad. It's quick.
We're not going to get the best out of somebody if we're not connecting with them. And that's kind of, I guess you can kind of see that theme is throughout the app and throughout the 4 steps of reflecting, evaluating, developing, and implementing is you got to make it personal.
Yeah.
So I smile. I introduce myself. I ask them how they're doing. I've interviewed people who are really nervous, and I say, hey, you know what? Like, we're just here to have a conversation. Of course, that doesn't always ease the nerves, but even like, hey, let's take a deep breath together. I just want to learn a little bit about you. I know you're here to learn a little bit more about us, and if this is a good fit for you. So just trying to make it a personal conversation, and of course it's hard because it's a very structured situation. It's not normal to sit there and have somebody ask you questions.
What are some questions that you would like to ask, or how would you change the process like of interviewing? Like, do you guys would you go through resumes first, or what are the things that you would like to implement?
I think asking people to solve a problem or describe how they would solve a problem, because I've seen all kinds of stuff. I've been the interviewer for thousands of interviews, and a lot of it's the same thing. Tell me why you're a good fit to work here.
Yeah.
Tell me why you're interested in this job. Tell me about a situation where you did this. And I think those questions are important because it does give us some insight onto how this person works or handles problems. I think I would ask, and a lot of those behavioral questions, what would you do different, to see how they've learned, how they've grown from that environment. I've met people who are great interviewers because they've gone in and they've practiced the behavioral questions. I think it'd be great to give them a problem that might not be directly related to their job or what they would be doing, but just to see their problem-solving process, or have them talk me through how they would solve a problem. Because I think that's the most important is, I've seen people who have extensive experience in areas, but they're just used to the routine. And vice versa. I've seen people who maybe have no experience, but are really great at figuring things out. And of course, there's people all along that spectrum. But I think, knowing how to solve problems and how to get results and thinking outside the box. And there's so many companies that value diversity, and they say, we want people, men and women and the whole gambit of different characteristics. I'd like to see more diversity in thought. And we don't all think the same.
No, and that's the thing. It's you look into the interview process. When many that I've been through and seen many of, it's that generic question thing. It doesn't tickle me because I've been in Universal and had interviewed for the same job 9 times. It was the same question, and I go to second round. Second round, same questions, and I got so exhausted. I didn't get the job, folks, because tattoos and other reasons were the excuse, not the real reason. But I went through and I'm like, I got so tired by interview 3 that it was just like, I'm gonna stop you here because if we're not gonna go forward, if you don't already have it on the notes what I've just said, I don't know what more to tell you. Give me something else. Like, how would you solve for X? And I'm just like, ugh, it was so generic.
Sure.
And I don't think companies do that.
I think, as humans, we're creatures of habit. We like routine. We like things to be the same. At the same time, we also like change. But when you, especially as you get in a more corporate environment, it just becomes difficult to do things in a different way. The structure and the routine, it becomes just very mechanical. And I think if we could make tweaks to that
Mm-hmm.
and allow people to be a little bit creative in their approach, and some of that comes from my performance background
Yeah.
and doing the live shows, is we might all have the same role and we all hit the same lines, but we might say it different. We might move different,
Oh yeah.
and we all think a little bit differently, and so to enable a little bit of that, I think would also be enriching for everybody who has to do that type of job. Whether it's as a cashier or as a director of a department.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird how people get, they get promoted and they're just like, how the hell did I get here? And then they
Yeah.
go over it and you're like, hey, so you were here before, and what would you recommend? And they kind of lose that element of like, I would do it this way, but it's changed, so I'm not really sure on how to now work in the spectrum. I dealt
Yeah.
with somebody the other day when it was in park management, and they were asking me questions, and I was like, "Oh, we do it this way now," and he was like, "Oh, I don't like that approach," and I'm like, "Well, that's how it's we fixed it. It wasn't done that way a couple years ago. It's changed." And he didn't like the way it was being iterated. He just didn't. He couldn't deal with it for the amount of people that were you'd be using the area that we're using. And I said, "Well, this is," and he goes,
Okay.
"Well, we wouldn't use it that way, and we can have a talk with our management." I'm like, talking to people that are in the field to help you understand why
Yeah.
we're doing it. And I really didn't like that, people that get elevated to management or executive level, and then they look at it and they're just like, oh, no, let me bring 6 people in on this to talk about. No, no, talk to people that are in the field so that you can get a better understanding of the pie chart, why it's done differently.
Those hands-on in the trench people really are going to be the
They save
best
you a lot
to.
more money than you going to talk to 6, executives and saying, why is it being done this way? Is it costing us any more financing wise? And it's kind of weird,
Yeah.
It's like you said, the really cool interview process. I would love to see that implemented. And I really wish a lot of companies, you see it a lot more in the Netherlands and Iceland and people like that, like how the interview goes. And like, let's sit down with the employee in general and ask different questions,
Hmm.
to find out how would this work for you. And a lot of it is to see if your resume is kind of lying, or if you have the experience or skills, but yet you don't know how to implement them. And like you said, it's that rut of just going back and forth, learning from it. It's like, ugh.
I've recently been reading quite a bit about AI. I know that's a big thing, and you see places like McDonald's where their employees are requesting or requiring $15 an hour, um, and then you start to look at how that starts to compress, you know, the different pay
Yeah, the
raises.
human
You know,
interaction also.
yeah. So you look at if the entry level is making $15 an hour, what are we going to pay the managers?
Yeah,
Because that kind of squishes their pay range. So what do these companies do is they go, they go to the tech, and so there's a lot of concern about artificial intelligence and how that's going to work. And I don't believe in taking the human element out, but I
no, it
also
will never
understand that
be.
businesses are there to make money. So
Yeah.
that's it's kind of like two things that are
Mm-hmm.
challenging each
Clashing.
other.
Yeah.
But the one thing that computers and AI can't do is be creative in their problem solving. They kind of get a method. They don't think outside the box. So I
Mm.
think that's one thing that we've got, and will continue to be a strong skill in the workforce, no matter what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. It's like insane. Everybody's got the Alexas, and I've got an Alexa that runs the whole room now, which saves a lot more money.
Yeah,
I love using it, especially with the 3D printer work that I do. Then I'm able to track it down to how much it's going to cost for the client and what I'm working on, so I can break it down part wise of how much material everything costs. And everybody's like, "Oh, well, I don't like having a computer in my system." It's like, well, she really doesn't do everything I want her to do. It's really hard. You have to make an API, and I have to go down the whole list of what you have to do to make it work. They think it's
yeah,
just point and click. I'm like, no, it's like management. It's like 3D printing. You just can't buy a 3D printer and expect it to work. You can't. You have to like literally research the filaments and what's going to work for you. It's a lot of trial and error. Hopefully, you have a notebook next to you because it's a lot of hard work.
yeah,
And everybody's like, oh, it's all point and click. Yeah, and like I said, the AI, like I was at McDonald's the other day and I saw the AI thing, and then the person came up and she wanted to talk to me, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna make it real quick here because like you guys look busy," which they were. I was like, I think about a team of 16 in the McDonald's that I
Yeah.
was in, but I ended up using the kiosk instead of going to talk to the person, and I just handed her my receipt. I was just like, "Oh, I'm order number 514 of the day," you know. And she was like, "Well, I'm right here, hon." And they have now where you can actually walk into the McDonald's. I think it was on Kirkland Road here in Orlando, and you can walk
Okay.
in and they bring your food to you. If you don't want to like stand there, they'll actually do take a number off the thing and sit down, and they know exactly what number you're at. So it's like, oh, you're you know number one, so you can sit wherever you want, and they look for it, and boom, you're done. Which I thought that was
That's
more.
cool.
It's more for them, and it gives them more time to clean and talk with you.
Yeah.
And I thought it was good. I didn't feel underwhelmed or overwhelmed by the employee. I thought that was kind of cool that I can either talk with them or, if they're busy, I can actually take my time and make the order the way I'd like it. And
That's
there were a
great.
lot of things on the menu that I didn't even know they had. And the guy came over and
Hmm.
he's like, "Oh, there's a lot more stuff. Like you can have, because I'm a high protein guy. I weight lift and stuff like that, and need some more protein for the day. I didn't know they made like eggs for the day. So I was like, oh, I
Cool.
want, which kind of screwed them up company wise because they didn't know. So I go in, I find eggs, and I'm like, oh, there's eggs. I can put that on my chicken sandwich for more protein. And it
Get the whole barnyard on there.
Oh, dude, I did it insanely. Like the manager comes up, she's like, "Honey, your order's gonna take a little bit longer. We didn't know you wanted eggs." Like it said it on the computer, but they're like, "We have to like literally break that out for you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay,
That's
I'll
cool.
wait." She's like, "Do you want anything? Do you want an extra thing, drink or whatever?" I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm fine." Or like,
Wow.
I need something high protein. I didn't know you guys made it until I spotted it on the interior menu. She's like, "Oh yeah, like that
Yeah.
thing has everything on it. We have to make it if you request it."
Dang.
Which is I'm glad, it's like so you can't like you'll see the menu above here, but you're looking at the employee going, "My standard order will be a number 6 or, whatever." Being
Sure.
able to like look at that and go, "Okay, I want something different for health, reasons or whatever." I think it's a
Sure.
really cool idea for them.
Yeah.
Do they deserve the
It,
$15? I'm not sure.
yeah. Well, and it seems neat that that they're using the technology to enhance the workforce and enhance your experience, and then I don't think there'll ever be a good substitution for human interaction.
No,
I
there never
think
should be.
we need that. It's a critical part of who we are just as people. I think that's very important, and to what extent it depends on the person. Some people want tons of it, and some people are like,
Yeah,
I'm
lazy
good by
bees.
myself most of the time, which is it's fine. But I don't think that we'll ever really get away from that too far.
No, I
You know,
think we'll never
there's
stretch.
there's Amazon Prime, and I like to order stuff from there. I like
Hell
to
yeah.
get stuff delivered, but there's something else about just going to the store and picking out one or two things, or chatting with the cashier, or
Yeah, it's like
whomever.
I love going to not like a Target, or I like actually seeing the product and being able to hold it, and especially when you're trying to build, like you said, you were trying to build a whiteboard, and you're like, I love just getting there and looking at ways to do it for cheaply.
Yeah,
I could go to
yeah,
Amazon and buy the board. However, for budgetary costs, I can go in and do this and this and save more money.
sure, yeah,
At the end, have like a product that I'm going to use for a little bit and be able to recycle it or what have you.
yeah. Is this really what I want? Let me go look at it and make sure before I buy it.
Exactly. Most people they don't measure too. When it's like Amazon, I was talking to one of their customer service people who was remote, and I said, "Hey man, I did order, I did measure it. However, it was like off. Apparently, it was defective or something." And the guy goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You did right. It was." He goes, "Yeah, you're not the only person that measured it correctly." And he goes, "Yeah, we talked to the manufacturer for you." So they're like, they have to deal with all that. But it's like it's nice going in to measure thing and then like cut it into width your own, and it's that satisfaction of making it yourself sometimes, which is
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly.
Which people don't understand about 3D printing. Like, oh, I could just buy that wheel. You could, but it doesn't exist. Or I can wait.
Yeah,
I can go to China and buy it from China, but it would take me 3 months to get it.
yeah.
When I can just go in.
Speaking of
Oh, God.
Sorry, speaking of 3D printing, have you heard about Adam Savage's?
I have. I thought it was. I watched Star Talk the other night. For those who don't know what that is, I went on YouTube and Neil deGrasse Tyson has his own podcast on YouTube and stuff like that. And they were talking about the Iron Man suit that he built, which I haven't clicked on the article and read, but apparently like they were able. I think GE uses it or whatever, and they're able to like micro thin pieces of titanium. And they were
Yeah,
talking about like, holy hell! I was like, I knew about it from a friend who works in airplanes. He works with Boeing, and he was like, yeah,
Okay.
dude. He's like, I do like they do like blades and they do this. He goes, what you're doing is it's home automation, but like what we do is bigger. And he's like, you're not far off. He's like, what you're doing
Yeah.
is perfect because it's home. It's you're testing it out first, and then you send it out to them to get the iteration bigger. I'm like, whoa, which is super badass. I
There
didn't see
was
the
a
full suit, but
I went and watched it because there was a like an article in the newspaper here in Denver, and it said that the Colorado School of Mines had 3D printed a titanium Iron Man suit, and I was like, what?
yeah,
And so I went online and watched it, and then they get the CEO of that company that he uses like the jetpacks on his arms,
yeah.
and he flies around. Have you seen that guy?
Yeah, it's insane. I was like, he's gonna fall into the water. Nope, he just
No.
right around. I'm
So
like,
they suit him up in that thing, and he's flying. He's kind of like flying around in this Iron Man suit. Man,
it's
it is
insane. I
unreal.
saw it on Facebook, and I was like, I saw like the iterations of like the hand things, and I'm like, it's got a hell of a lot of thrust, and I'm like, okay, this has got to be like Photoshop. No, it's real. It literally
Yeah,
picks him in the air, and he flies around. I'm like, that is insane. What the applications could be for, I have no idea.
yeah.
Like I'm like, this could be for like search and rescue. This could be for like, I don't know. I
You better have dang good balance though, because if you get tilted one way or the other and you come falling down, that's not going to feel
That's
good.
gonna feel pretty. I mean, you got about 30, 40 feet off the ground. You don't think that's
Yeah.
high, but when you come down, that's full body weight, and you're just
Oh yeah.
that's pavement or water. And that's why I'm going under the water, and I'm guessing that's why he did it over water. It's better just to fall in the water because you can easily just float in buoyance. But
Yeah.
pavement or wood or what have you in traffic, I mean, that would kill.
Mm-mm.
Oh my god.
Just don't belly flop in that
Oh
water
hell
from
no.
30 feet. Oh
But yeah, I
man.
thought it was really bad. I heard it on Star Talk,
Yeah.
and I got to listen to it a little bit. But he was talking about like how they were able to 3D print it and change the molecular structure to like make it stronger because of the infill and stuff like that. And I was like, ooh, I knew a lot of this stuff existed. It's just the pricing of cost for a
Yeah.
lot of companies to use it. It's like the one machine I was looking at, which is the Carbon One, which is one of the fastest 3D printed resin printers that they use for research for GE and a lot of automakers. That printer alone is like I think they said like $60,000 just to leave,
Sheesh.
and then the resin is about $6,000. So you can't
Yeah.
own it; you have to lease it. And I'm like, what, 60,000?
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah. And it's like this is what people are like. They can't bring it. I've been to like a huge auto show with all the 3D printers and people that are using it for medical purposes and what I'm
Yeah.
using it for, and it's super super expensive. And you realize why the bills are so high. You're like, that's titanium. Well, that titanium leg there, runs you about it's $2,000 to $3,000, and you're like, oof.
Yeah.
It's
Just a small barrier to entry.
yeah, basically, you're like, can I just like mold that out of a mold? And that's why like a lot of 3D printing stuff that I do, like a lot of the prop makers that I use, they use it for like molding and like the masks that I print for them.
Yeah.
A lot of them are sculptors, and they're like, well, I can do this in sculpt, but I'd rather like do it digitally, and then because I can make multi molds of it, and then they can get stuff out to
Yeah.
the cosplayers, etc. But yeah, some freaking amazing. And with me, it's like I want to make stuff for disability because I'm having cerebral palsy.
Hmm.
It's like the crutch tips and the hand grips. And the hand grips I've talked with NinjaFlex, which is the company I talk with a lot, for their filament because they used to be a cardboard company and then they went into 3D printing and they're like, huh. And I hit them up expecting a no, expecting a huge no. And they were like, no, like what's your goal with this? And I'm like, my goal is to make hand grips or crutch tips because I'm tired of going to Amazon. I'm tired of looking for the right crutch because a lot of companies that make medical equipment are either going out of business or they're shipping it over to China and they're kind of losing their prototyping ways of like, hey, like this worked for me or for somebody else, and now they're getting rid of it,
Yeah.
and you're like, I can't find that part anymore. So then you have to go into 3D,
Mm.
3D CAD modeling or Fusion and design it, and then you can, especially giving to people who are in need, who are not making a lot of money, or
Yeah.
who are desperately in need of a crutch or something, and it's
And
really
quality, I think, is a challenge too. When you start,
yeah, you're starting.
reducing expenses, you get
Yeah,
lesser
the
quality.
pair that I bought now are $34. I had to buy a new pair of aluminum crutches, and I got those
Okay.
within like 2 days of Amazon. And I don't like the arm cuffs because I like them to grip a little bit more on my forearms because they're what they call as forearm crutches. Feel a little bit different. It kind of gives me a little more leeway to kind of grip more into corners and stuff like that. And I was like, I like the original ones that they had because the cuffs are a little more thicker and they're a little more bendable, so you can kind of get that more security. And somebody goes, "Why do you like that?" I said, "Well, I think it's mental, obviously, but it makes me feel a little more secure when I'm on the run or I'm on the go." For people who use crutches like I do, and they don't build them like I keep telling they don't build them like they used to because like when you crutch, I mean, I run through City Walk or I run to like a concert. friends are taking off on 2 feet. I got to keep up with them. And I'm like, oh
Mm.
man, I gotta run twice as fast like a damn giraffe. They call it the Ali gallop, pretty much. Everybody calls it. It's like grr, grr. Everybody records it and laughs. They're like, oh, there he goes. There goes the unicorn. There he goes, the little giraffe. And I start
Nice.
rolling and laughing. But I mean, it's just iteration of like you have to like build it yourself and make it work. But making it affordable for those
Yeah.
who can't afford it, and maybe you can donate a few because you can write it off your taxes. So it's either way, it's a win-win for your company. And the same thing
Hmm.
for your R&D, which you're like, well, I don't want to donate it because I don't really get anything. It's like, no, you can write it off as a tax expense. So all the work you put into it, you can get a little bit back from it. So and
Yeah.
get more people into it. But yeah, that's one reason why we got into I got into 3D printing. And people are like, oh, you just do it for that. No, I make a lot of props and I make a little money from it to pay for a lot of the equipment that I'm
Yeah.
using. But in the end, it teaches me a lot of how what the cost and then what it can and can't do, and then what the materials. Another thing, I do a lot of R&D research on that because material is constantly changing, and then a lot of companies are getting a little more slacky on what filaments are good, what are bad. You have carbon fiber, you have nylon, you have flexible, you have. Everybody's like, oh, you have carbon fiber? I'm like, yeah, I do, but there's a lot of carbon fibers that are bad. They don't make them properly. There's not enough carbon in them.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm working with next. Is carbon fiber, and it's trying to find a company now that. I had a company hit me up on Twitter the other day, and I'm not going to mention the name because I don't want to blast them, but they're an up-and-coming company, and I talked to them from China, and they mentioned to me like, "Oh, would you like to use our stuff, or would you like to be? We'd like to be your supplier." And I said, "Well, if you're using carbon fiber, yes." And I saw that the prices were pretty good, they're about $15 a roll. However, that
Okay.
doesn't translate into good quality, so I'm just like, I should kind of wait. Maybe I should ask for like a
Sure.
test sample, um, because my average cost on filament, guys, is about $18 to $20, which is pretty good. But the filament that I use is really, really well. It's company is really good. It's made in America. It's really clean. Not saying other companies make it wrong. Persa is one of the good ones that they actually test their own filament, and once you get it from the factory, they actually scan it, so you actually know what the diameters were and how clean it actually is. So they're really picky on their filament. The
That's great.
price and cost is what you get from Persa, but it is what it is. I mean, you're going to get some good, and that's why I do a lot of R&D research from from my company, because it's just like, hey man, like let's put it online so you guys don't have to keep tracking now what is being used nowadays. Which I'm starting to
Hmm.
do now and taking notes and like, okay, this is what the printer likes to run it as. This is what I would recommend. In the end, hopefully, it turns into a little bit of profit for me, and gets a lot of companies looking at me, so I can make a little bit of something back from them. Or no, who knows? We'll
Sure.
see where she
Yeah.
goes. One step at a time, and it's just one step at a time. But I do
It's
want to
the
get
only way to do it, right?
pretty much. It's called R&D research for a reason.
Yeah.
Which somebody
Yeah.
asked me when they're like, "What's the R&D research?" I'm like, "It's what a lot of companies aren't doing,
Yeah.
sadly." But I do want to get talking into your Terminator days. I didn't know you were John Connor from
Yeah.
Japan.
Yeah.
You brought it up a couple
Gosh.
times. I wanted to. People are gonna kill me if I don't talk about it with you.
So I guess prior to and I'll give you a little bit of the backstory since we've been talking about how long it takes to get things done and that sort of thing. In fifth grade, my goal, my dream job was to be a stuntman. So that's fifth grade. I was talking about, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a stuntman. I want to go out and do stunts and this sort of thing. And I met this guy who owned a bookstore, and I was talking to him about stunts and how I wanted to do stunts. And I was in martial arts, started when I was 4.
Yeah.
This guy was a kung fu master, quite literally. So he had trained with kung fu masters. This guy was amazing, and he had owned a bookstore. And I was training with him, and we were talking about the future and that sort of thing. And I think he was probably about 30 or so years older than me, 40 years older than me maybe.
Yeah.
So I told him I wanted to do stunts, and he's like, well, I actually have a book that lists all the stunt coordinators and all this out in Hollywood. So I was like, yes. He's like, you want to borrow it? I was like, yes, I would love to borrow it. So I was probably about 18, and I called and or emailed every single stunt coordinator on that list
Oh wow.
and got no's all the way down the board. So I was like, okay, well, what's next? And because I had been a competitive martial artist for since 5 years old, I said, well, let me keep honing my craft and keep perfecting my skill, and maybe that'll kind of create a window for me to do stunts or something.
Huh.
So started going back to competitions, did some local theater where I kind of did some very basic type stunt work, for a local theater, local plays, did a couple of plays. Um,
Gotta start somewhere.
you do got to start somewhere. I actually got a video that I have, and man, one of my buddies came and watched and still teases me about it. So we'll just leave it at that. But I mean, it is what
It will
it
never
is.
see the light of day here, sadly.
So after doing some competitions, I went to World Championships in Vegas, and that was televised, and it was a pro-am competition. And I got there, and man, I sure made an ass of myself the first time around. I did so bad because I didn't know what I had just jumped in the deep end, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I saw what some of these guys were doing. Who later, one of the guys is in Martial Law, the TV series, and I had no idea who he was. I was chatting with him afterward, and he was really good. And
Yeah.
since then I saw him on Sprite commercials and stuff. I was like, I know that guy.
I know that dude.
So I spent the next year, basically all of my free time was training and working and perfecting my craft, and I'm saying quite literally 3 to 4 hours at least every day. Went back the next year and competed again and placed fifth in one category and seventh in the other, and they gave out the certificates declaring you a world champion if you were in the top 7. So I got 2. I was like, yes, but never quite had the ego to call myself a world champion. I'm like, I placed 5th. I mean, if 5th place is 5th place. So, but I was really excited that competing against the caliber of people who I was competing against, I mean, I felt amazing about 5th place. Continued, working on that, and I think 3 or 4 months later, I was at nationals, competing at a national competition, and I placed 2nd.
Oh wow.
And so that was, I was continually honing and continually perfecting, and I saw this opportunity for stunt performers. There was an audition in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And they had been to Salt Lake City before, and I didn't see them the previous year. And they said that because they hadn't gotten anybody last year, this was the last year that they were going to go
Wow.
to Salt Lake City. So, I mean, really another one of those situations where the preparation, the opportunity met. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I went to the audition for street stunt performers, or was it street performers?
That
It was the audition
right.
for street performers, and I was like, I don't know what any of this is. I'm just going to go to both auditions and see what happens.
Take the wheel, Jesus.
So I went to the street performers, and there was a bunch of actors and stuff there, and I would not consider myself an actor because I'm not very good. And so I just did my routine that I did at nationals, and they were like, "Wow, okay, like that's amazing. We want our stunt performer to see, our stunt coordinator to see you. Can you come back tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was planning on it anyway." So they're like, "Okay." So I went through the whole stunt audition the next day, and then there was kind of a break, and they said, when we come back, if you have a martial arts routine, we'd welcome you to go ahead and do it. So a couple of guys got up before me. They did their routines. I got up there, and what was funny was the stunt coordinator said, "Hey, I've been in martial arts for over 10 years, so there's not much that you're going to show me that's going to impress
I
me.
haven't seen.
So don't try to impress me." I was like, well, I mean,
way to encourage me, sir.
I was like, well, I'm not going to try to impress anybody, but in addition to karate, my background included tumbling, and did capoeira for a while. And if you don't know what that is, it's a very acrobatic, in some senses, martial arts style. So a lot of that was incorporated in my routine.
Yeah.
And afterward, he said, "Wow, what kind of karate do you train in?" And he's asking me questions, and I was like, "Yeah,
Bitch, gotcha.
yeah." So like for me, I felt like great about that, and during that time, I was a carpet cleaner. That was my job. So
you got to start somewhere.
yeah, exactly. So I basically after that went back to work and almost forgot about it. And then I got a call 2-3 months later inviting me to Japan to do John Connor as in the Terminator.
What? Like, so it just
And
happened out of the freaking blue.
yeah, so I didn't know at the time that I was going anywhere with it, and I felt good about the audition, and I was like, oh, like there's a notch in your belt, there's an experience. Um, but then when they're yeah, it was just so surreal, and they're like, yeah, we'd like you to come out to Japan, and we're going to pay for your ticket. I'm like, what? They're like,
Wow. So
you
like you just
know,
had to find lodging.
they provided lodging.
Oh wow.
So I was like, what? It was just unreal. And that was my first time like moving away from home, and I was 20. So just an amazing experience, and the caliber of people. Uh, Quick story is once we got there, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. They
Yeah.
said you do John Connor in the Terminator. I was like, oh yeah, awesome. I don't know what that means, but I'll do it.
Okay.
And then
Leader of
so
what?
yeah, so we're training in this offsite gym, and we go up to this tower that's about 20 feet.
Oh wow.
And I'm afraid of heights.
What?
So they put me on this tower, and I'm looking down like, I don't know about this, guys. And they're like, yeah, hurry up, you gotta get this handled, because tomorrow we're going to twice this height. And I was like, twice this height? Is that even possible? Like that's like, this is really high. So they're like, yeah, actually it's more than twice this height, so you really got to get this down. So I was like knees shaking, and I do the rappel, I practice the rappel, and then we go up to the catwalk, and it's that it's like that steel grate that has the triangles or diamonds in it all through, so you could see down.
Yeah.
So I'm walking across this grate on the next day for like the real training, and I'm like holding on to the handrail as I walk on the catwalk. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I would have never thought you would be scared of heights. You were very confident, so.
So it took me a couple months to like feel more confident doing that, but there's always a little bit of nerves before the show, and you're looking down. I think it was like 46 feet or something like that.
The Terminator was, I think, John Connor was 30, 34, 39, and then Sarah was like 30. I think they said.
Yeah, I think the dimensions were similar to that. I don't remember the exact. It
Yeah,
was
because I
it was
asked,
high
it
though.
was like 38 on John and 31 on Sarah. I might be completely wrong.
I'd have to go back and look at the schematics or something, but it was high.
Yeah,
It
because
was
I
really
asked one of
high.
our technicians over at Terminator. I'm like, so what are the drops? He was like, it's this. And I was like, okay. That's still one hell
And
of a
I
drop into a crowd. You're like, oh.
yeah yeah. So I did that, and from that, after that, I went over and did some training in Australia. I trained in Australia for about 5 weeks, doing a whole bunch of different other stunt work, and then did some shows in Texas and Arizona. Then did some commercial work for some local stuff, and really it was just a neat experience. But in between the highlights, there was a lot of hard work along each step of the
Yeah.
way. But my goal after doing getting to Japan was I wanted to do some commercial work and be on TV. So I got to do that. I was in the 2007 Chick-fil-A calendar. I mean, of course, you're not going to notice it's me because they just used me as the body to superimpose the cow over. So I got to ride around on a horse in a fat suit.
Oh, wow.
Um, So it was really cool just to have a variety of those different experiences, and not looking for the end result, but just looking like those milestones or those
That was one hell of an
those points.
experience.
Yeah, it sure was.
Like, how was Japan? Like, when you finally get over there, was it like, did you get to explore? Like, how long did you stay with Japan?
So I was in Japan for a year and 7 months, and the first 3 months were really awesome. And we got to, because the way that our shows were, they were back to back. I think they were on like 25-minute cycles or
Yeah.
20-minute cycles. So we were just cranking out shows, and we would only do like 8 to 10 shows a day as a performer, because there was they didn't want to wear us out and that sort of thing. So we'd be at work for maybe 3 or 4 hours, really crank out our shows and then leave. So I definitely took the opportunity to like get out and explore.
Learn the culture, yeah.
And the first 3 months were awesome, and then it got hard because it got real. The novelty wore off, and I couldn't ask for directions, and I didn't really know what I was buying when I was shopping
Oh
from,
wow.
when I went to the grocery store. And so, the next probably about 3 months were a little rough. And I just said, hey, I'm here. I've committed to this, and I'm going to learn some Japanese. So I started just every opportunity I got listening for like what people are saying, and any kind of words that I thought I heard often, I would write down in a little notebook.
Oh
And
wow.
I was, studying the Japanese, studying Japanese in one of my books, and trying to learn how to read so I could read stuff and kind of like figure out what does this mean
I
and
mean, back then
what.
they didn't have frickin' like Google Translate. You could just take a photo, literally hold
Yeah,
your phone and it reads it for you.
and
You're
it'll
like,
read it for you. Yeah, that would have been amazing. But
that's
it was a really cool experience to get to know the language and to make friends in the local community. And I did karate out there. I went to a karate school and I trained there for about a year.
oh wow.
Um,
How was that?
so that was cool. They were a little bit, the instructor had been to America, and he said, like, they were a little bit rougher with the students, and he'd look at me every now and again and say, like, you can't do this in America, huh? And I was like, nope, you
Nope.
sure can't.
Nope. You get your ass whooped.
can't
Hit you with a
can't get
kendo
rough
stick.
with
You're like,
people.
ah.
And it wasn't anything that was really, over the top, but they were a little bit more contact
Yeah,
heavy.
rubber on the
Uh,
edges.
yeah, and so I think the interaction was a little bit more realistic if you were practicing martial arts, but definitely some of it, you in the States, you might worry about a lawsuit or something like that.
Oh wow.
But
Well, nowadays, yeah.
because nobody wants to be hit or anything like that. And a little bit of old school approach, I guess, would be the best way to explain it.
Oh,
And
that's
really cool experience, though.
sounds about right. Lawsuit nowadays, and people now with PC. Don't hit my son
Yeah.
like that. It's like, well, that's called life, madam.
So, but yeah, really cool, really just really neat people, and it was interesting just to experience a culture that's so different from ours, because we come at the perspective of, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And they have a little bit more of a theory of like work is work and play is play, and those are different.
Oh, very
So
much so. Yeah.
us from the Western culture, we're like, yeah, let's play at work, let's have a good time, let's make it fun. And so there's a little bit of a culture clash at the beginning, but really neat to see how, once you're part of the team, like you are part of the team, and there is no breaking that. And so even people that I thought maybe didn't like me, when it was time for me to go and they're crying, I thought, wow, like, gosh, this is pretty meaningful that somebody that I thought didn't like me, I was trying to
Yeah.
get to like me, actually did like me the whole
That happened to
time, or
me.
at least
Yeah.
some
That
point.
happened to me. I left for a little bit from the company, and I came back. Everybody was. I had a basket like 2 weeks later, and people were notes, and people were like, they couldn't say it. I'm like, why can't you just say it? They're like, well, I thought you
Yeah,
were leaving for good. I was like, no, I'm just taking a hiatus. Um, for mental reasons, and really, that's beautiful that the cast and people you don't realize actually care. They care.
yeah,
It's like wow.
yeah. So I think that's neat, and I think one of the things I took from that is just let people know that you appreciate them as you go. I mean, that's something that I've learned to do, is just let people know if they're making an impact. Who doesn't like to know that they're
Yeah,
appreciated or that they're meaningful?
it happened to somebody the other day. They said, "Hey, I listened to your podcast, and it actually was really good. Like, keep at it." And I'm like, that really does mean a lot. Like, it's nothing. They're like, no, but it seems like something you enjoy. It seems like
Yeah,
you're having a good time, and keep at it. Most people don't have the balls to jump in front of a microphone and a camera. You know,
sure.
and that takes confidence, a lot of confidence. It seems like
Yeah,
you're very confident when you talk in front of guests or people or customer service. You're very confident. And I went, no, thanks for the insight. Appreciate that.
yeah.
It's very
Yeah,
rare.
I have noticed. Like, that's a good point. A lot of people are nervous. Like, you talk to somebody and they're fine. You turn the camera on and it's like
I've had that
something
a
something kind of
lot.
shits, and they're like, oh,
I've had that a lot. We've had a really good conversation one day with somebody, and I said, "Hey, I'm turning the cameras on. I'm just gonna get flowing," and then they stuttered. They stopped. I said, "Listen, this is just a conversation between you and I. No one can see us. We're not live streaming it. But
yeah,
after a few minutes, they relaxed. Their laughter started coming out, and then they called me after the end of it, and they said, "Can we do it again?" And I said, "Okay, cool."
cool.
I said, I didn't know it would be that interesting or intriguing. I said, well, that's what it is. It's fun. So in
I
Japan, what?
read.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna chime in. I said I read something somewhere that said like the top fear of most people is public speaking,
Stage fright. I
and then
got.
number two is death. And I thought, oh my gosh,
It's true
people
though,
are more
because
afraid to
like
speak in
you
public
think
than
about
die.
it. Well, it's like when you're in front of a huge meeting, it's like 1,000 people, and you're like, I think I broke that. I did a lot of acting and a lot of theatrical work and stuff like that, so I kind of had to be in front of crowds. And granted, it's only 60 people, but everybody's on your lingering word. Lights on you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you work for a huge, theme park, you have 1,000 people. You need to explain, in a crowd, like what's going on. It's like, okay, folks, I need you folks to go here. I need you folks to go here. Your stage fright better go in like 2 seconds. You just kind of, ugh. You remember just
Yeah.
think of yourself in your underwear. That doesn't really work that way because you're in a suit, but at the same time, it's like, well, if this isn't motivation, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Eh, but oh my goodness. So when you finally left Japan, you finally, when that was all said and done, and how did the Australia gig come up and stuff?
So Australia, I actually just took myself out there. There was a training facility, and so I said, "Man, I'd like to try to make a career of this." And I had heard a lot of good things, and a lot of the Australian performers had kind of come through and done some stuff with the training facility out in Australia.
Hmm?
So I went out there, spent 5 weeks out there, did all the training, met some really awesome guys that have at least one of them who I know has got an awesome stunt career now. It's like really neat to see where he was when we met and how like
Where
this
he's
guy was
progressed?
kind of a shy, pretty reserved guy, and I've seen him on I actually saw him on a preview for a movie, and I messaged him like, dude, I just saw you on a
Oh, that's
preview for
awesome.
it was for Deadpool. I was like, man, this is awesome, way to go.
Yeah.
So went out there, did the training, and then came back to the States.
Was that like kind of a big transition after being from Japan to Australia and then back to the States? Was it like, holy crap, like, did you have more respect for being an American, or was it like, man, we really do things bad here?
Yeah, yeah, it was really interesting just to learn the different ways, and in Australia, they have a very almost, I would say, like almost unionized, and not like here in the States we've got SAG, which is the Screen Actors Guild, which is
Yeah.
a union, but the way that that's handled is very different. Like in Australia, to work in stunts, you have to like start off being a, you know, and this isn't exact, so it's just kind of off a memory of over 10 years ago. But in essence, you've got to like go on and be an extra so many times, and then go do like very
Kind of gonna work your way up from
small.
the bottom. That's wild.
So you have to meet criteria before you can move to the next step,
Interesting.
which I think like that is an awesome way to do it.
Yeah, because then you have
Well,
more respect for everybody in the roles.
yeah, you have more respect. It also, kind of takes some of. There's always going to be like politics and relationships and stuff in business, but I think it kind of removes some barriers because you get to know people along the way. While in the States, it's a lot about like if a stunt coordinator pulls you on the set and that and has you do some stuff as to whether or not you get union. So there's kind of a little bit of like a catch-22 in the States with how to get on. You have to be a union to get on, or you have to like kind of go through a different process. So I really appreciated the way that their structure was for performers. After learning more about it, being in Australia, having some friends who I had met in Japan, who were, they had left about the same time I did, and were like very well versed stunt folks that were kind of the guys I looked up to, who had really done some big stuff. So coming back, it was just like seeing the difference and just kind of like trying to figure out where to go from here, because there wasn't I didn't know anybody before I went to Japan of, what does that path look like, and what do you do, and how do you go about getting more work. So then coming back and just trying to figure it out. I was back in Utah, so I drove out to California a few times for auditions. I'd even gone out to Universal and auditioned back in 2004 and got offered the role of John Connor again. I was like, yeah, but it was an on-call role, so I was like, gosh, I just can't move to Florida for
No,
an
I
on-call
need
role
the
where
money.
you don't know where you're gonna
Gonna get pulled or
when
what
you're gonna be
day?
working or
Yeah.
what you got to do. So just kind of like, I guess again, just kind of learned as I went and had a few opportunities. Some of them I went for, some of them I passed up on. Uh, can't say that I would do it different now because I appreciate where I'm at.
Yeah.
Uh, but I could see that it would probably have been a different outcome.
Mm. When when you finally when did you start going to school? Like when it was like finally I know it's still work and I just this is what I wanted, but I kind of did that kind of translate into what you do now?
It did. So as I was in Arizona doing some more theme park work, there's just kind of a lot of pounding your body every day.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of guys I know had hurt themselves and pretty severely. And they were only a handful of years older than me. And I kind of thought, like, gosh,
I better find a real job.
yeah, like I love this, and I don't know that this is something that I could continue long term. So I had kind of told my boss, like, I think I want to go back to school. So I don't know that I'm going to be renewing my contract, and didn't at the time didn't know what I wanted to go to school for.
Mm-hmm.
So I had reached out to some people I'd worked with and knew that were in HR, and reached out to the VP from Universal Japan and just asked him, like, what did your career path look like? Can you share that with me? And I mean, this is like an awesome leader. So this guy's in Japan. I email him just to ask him a couple of questions, and
Yeah.
he's like, how about we set up a call?
Whoa.
So he called me from Japan, and he spent at least 30 minutes to 40 minutes on the phone with me,
That's awesome.
sharing his path, sharing some insight, providing some suggestions, and, also discussing how the world has changed since he went through his process. I was just blown away with that generosity of, I mean, here's this guy, a VP at a huge company overseas, and he's willing to give me
Some insight.
some insight, 30 or so minutes of his time when there's really not anything in it for him.
No.
So that really made an impression. So just kind of like seeing what other people have done. I was the first in my family to go through the college process.
Oh wow.
So, again, a new adventure of what do you do and how do you do it?
Yeah.
And so just as I got through the process and started learning more and heard about certain things that I was thinking about, and then learned about this program of organizational behavior and how we start to look at behavior and processes and motivation and things like that, which really interested me.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of just started me on that path, and I just kept following it, and just finding little areas to try to make improvements or learn and grow, just as a person.
That's amazing. Like that's cool as hell that he actually took time out of his like. I think you're kind of wrong. I think he knew what he was doing, and it's kind of like it's like let me at least impart something on someone because like maybe he was in his road, like he said, probably down the road he didn't get that advice or
Sure.
they don't realize like one person can change your whole entire perspective of something and how
Yeah.
gracious that person becomes.
Sure.
Because I've had it with like VPs of like 3D printing companies, and they're like, "Hey man, like we're not telling you to give up. Just take your time. Our
Yeah.
door's always here." And I was like, I felt so like pissed, but so thankful that they
Yeah.
didn't treat me like a goddamn customer. They treated me like a person. If saying like,
Yeah.
"Listen, here's your goal, here's your idea, but like take your time. Like we're not going anywhere. Our door's always here. You know." We can't say we
Hmm.
want to talk to you now, but like later. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
We'll see you later. And it's like, and don't lose our email. Here's our phone number. And I'm like, that meant more to me than like, yeah, you're not ready yet. We're not ready to deal with you
Sure.
yet because we don't know what to do with you. And one guy said, he goes, we really don't know what to do with you yet. We see what you're working
Okay.
towards, but the problem is like our technology isn't where you would want it. And I'm like,
Oh.
that's amazing. Like he's
That's
like
good feedback.
he's like we would love to help you by all means, but resin printing, like I wanted to get into resin printing or crunch tips, and he goes, we'd love to help you. You've been trying to reach out for this for days and months, and you were very sweet in what you're doing, and we love that you're doing it. The problem is, it's like it's a lot of cost, and like we don't think going down this path is going to help you or anybody else. Like, it's just too cost effective. He's going to cost you way too much to research. It's going to cost you, and he broke it down, and I was like, dude, thank you. You're the first person to step in, and this was from the Moai company. I'll say who they are. The Moai printers from Matter Hackers. They're one of the probably
Okay.
one of the biggest printer companies, and I've been trying to hit them up, and they're Poly, I forget the name of the company, but they do the Moai printer, and they were just super, super sweet. I hit them up on Twitter, hit them up on Instagram. I'm like, how can I get in contact with you guys? And they're like, we just make the printer. We don't sell it. We goes to this company, Matter Hackers, and then you got to deal with them.
Okay.
And so I talked with them directly, and they're like, listen, you know, we'd love to help you, but the problem is like we love that you broke down what you wanted to do with it. However, we don't see it as being cost effective. And just prototyping with it and testing with it is so much money, and for the space you're working in, it's not going to be. It's going to smell like shit. It's just going to cost you so much. And the guy broke. He's like, it's going to cost you. It's going to smell like shit. It's probably going to poison you. It's. He just broke it all down. He goes, listen, we love you, and we really. The whole team here is cheering you on.
That's
But
awesome.
right now, we just don't see it being effective.
Hmm.
And it's like we'd love to help you. It's just so much money. At the same time, it's not going to give you any benefit.
Yeah.
You're not going to succeed going through us. Keep working at it. And then when you're
Yeah,
ready.
gotta appreciate that honesty,
And I
man.
was like, yeah, I wrote them back. I was like, thank you so fucking much for taking your time and explaining it because I was getting frustrated. And he was like, you're welcome. And he's like, we're here. Our door's open. Don't be afraid to
Yeah.
ask questions. And I was like, well, most people don't want to talk. I said, dude, I'm getting so flustered because I've been trying to contact you guys and just get an answer. And most people tell me no. And I'm not scared of no. I'm scared of,
Yeah.
can I at least try? Can I at least give me
Yeah.
my rundown of why I'm getting a hold of you? Why I'm fucking kicking your phone consistently because I want to know. Instead of being, uh, and that should go in life for anybody. If you're trying to, like, somebody keeps knocking on your door, it's probably for a reason like that. You know, they probably
Yeah.
want your feedback. And then it's like, the way you went down and talked to this guy, even though you think you said it, he it was nothing for him. It probably was because it's like he
Yeah.
could see you growing. He could see you as an individual, and you made the effort to get a hold of him. And like, hey,
Yeah.
what's your insight? And then he was like, yeah, man, let me try. Let me do something with this kid. At least get
I feel
him
like
guidance.
Yeah, I feel like that for me gave a good lesson because it's like, when we're on the outside looking in or we're looking up, we operate in this kind of manufactured structure,
Hmm.
different societal structures or business structures, and really at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to figure out our own path, and there's nobody who's been through the whole process
There's
and
no,
perfected
and
it.
I've said it in many other podcasts. There's no recipe for success.
No, there's no right answer, and I think you look on Instagram or Facebook and you see these people like, oh, I'll teach you exactly how to do it, and
Nope.
just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for anybody else
Yeah, and
because
there's a lot of marketing companies that do that too, and they're like, "Oh, well, we can
yeah,
get you numbers," and it's like, I don't need numbers. I need people to help. Like numbers don't do anything,
sure.
and it's like I
Well, and
need.
it's different environments, it's different things that you're working on, and there are so many different recipes for success, and I think it's you just got to define for what success looks like to you.
Hmm. Which is for you, and it's like when you said you came back from the States, and this guy, when he imparted all that knowledge to you, it's like, and you went back and you were like, "Wow, I want to." It seems like you imparted a lot with it. Like, oh my god, like this is what I want to do, and this is where I see my goal, and I think he left a lot with you without you even knowing it.
Yeah, I agree. I had the notes from that conversation. I had them up on a tech board in my room. Gosh, probably the first 2 years of college as I went back, just kind of like, when things were unfamiliar and challenging, and just like looking at that and kind of reviewing, like, okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
And then I think, as I talked about in the TEDx talk, like reflecting on my past experiences, because one of the initial reasons I didn't go to school is because I didn't think I was smart enough.
Same. Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
do well in high school
No,
at
same.
all.
I wasn't good at math. I was pretty much I was going into props. And one person come up believed in me. They're like, "You can do this. You're not stupid."
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
shocking. You feel like my GPA when I graduated was a 2.9. I could have easily I had a 4.0 for a long time. I was like, you know what? None of this is challenging my mind, but I didn't feel motivated.
Yeah. And I think, like, looking back at high school, it's like something I had to do.
Hmm. Many of us.
Yeah. And, but going to college is something I wanted to do, and I was like internally motivated to complete that. But I had looked at like, hey, I could memorize a script, I could memorize my, even within a short period of time, I could memorize my blocking, I could learn shows. Yeah, I should be able to learn some different subjects, whatever they might be.
Yeah, when you finally figured out like what your major and your minor, you were the first person to go to college. You just said, what was that like? It was like, oh my God, like can I do this? Or was how was the stepping process into that?
I think the first semester really instilled a lot of confidence. My first semester in college, I got a 4.0 for all my
Oh
classes.
wow.
It was a full load. So I think after doing that, I was like, okay, it was some studying. I did take a class that's like understanding your learning style, building routines. And so really it was about just understanding myself, building good routines, and then just continuing that process and making sure that I prioritize the things that were important and let go of the things that weren't. There were math. I did have to go through some like the remedial math classes and stuff, and that was that was a frustrating challenge because when you're not good at
Numbers suck.
something, you don't like to do something you're not good at.
X does not equal Y.
But I did statistics. I had to do statistics for my degree, and I loved statistics.
Yeah.
And one of the math majors that I had talked to said, yeah, most people are either going to love like algebra type math and calculus, or they're going to love statistics. But oftentimes one person doesn't like the other.
Yeah.
If you like statistics, you're probably not going to really enjoy calculus. And if you like calculus, you might not enjoy statistics. But for me, and the way I put it together was like that I could understand how
Oh, I think I lost you.
and that sort of thing.
There we go. Oh well. Hey, there you are. I had
Hey,
you were frozen for a bit there. I was like, yeah.
okay.
I just
It
get
might be my phone. I just got the 20% warning.
I think we better call it then soon.
Cool.
I think
Yeah.
we got about an hour and 40 in. So, but yeah,
Oh, really that long?
yeah.
Man, this has gone by quick.
I'm telling you, this is when it feels relaxing. You're like, oh my goodness, that's just great. But yeah, man, with all that stuff and the statistics, and you finally got your degree done, and you were like, woo.
But by the time I graduated, I had a few professors who said, you should really get your master's. So I was like,
Ooh.
okay.
Well, you went that far, and look where it got you. Like that's crazy that
Yeah.
you went from like the stunt work and the universal stuff got you to where what you're doing now. It's freaking insanity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how
I
a
would have
VP
never,
freaking guide you through it.
like, every step along the way, I've taken it one step at a time and tried to push forward. But looking back, I'm like, I would have, at the beginning of school, I would have never imagined going toward some of the things or doing some of the things that I've done. And it's like, you just got to go for some things. And if you have a passion towards something, it doesn't mean you're going to be passionate about that the whole way, but like work that out and get that out, because I don't think you'll ever regret trying something.
True, and you have things to look back on, like, okay, that didn't work, or I didn't like that. And
Yeah.
you move
And
forward.
I would hate to get, later in life and say, like, gosh, I really should have tried this, or I should have gone for that.
That's why I always take this for open mind. I always say shoulda, woulda, coulda. Everybody goes, why? I said, well, I'm in debt, to be honest. I owe money, but it's at the end of the day, it's like, am I happy? And
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm happy. I'm broke, but I'm farther to where I never thought I'd be. And now when
Sure.
I look back on it, I'm like, dude, you're doing what you want to do, and it's everybody else is struggling and screaming and not using their degrees. I have friends that have masters and bachelors, not in their field,
Yeah.
and they're not happy, and they're in debt, and they're just like, God, I thought school would make it so much better, but I'm not doing what I want to be doing, and at the end of the day,
I think it's, yeah, you gotta like go after the things that are going to make you feel challenged, that are going to help you grow, and that are going to that are going to push you, because it's might not always be the things that you love doing, but I think there's that's where the real reward comes in, is like pushing past boundaries, pushing past barriers, growing and learning, and then being able to take that forward with you.
for real. But yeah, man, it's been a pleasure talking with you. And then
Same.
this was like, I'm so glad I got to get this done because it's been over a year. I'm like, hey, come on, be on the podcast.
Gosh, yeah,
And
that's
you're
gone
like,
by quick.
yeah, man, sure. Like, I'll do it. And just set up a date. I didn't know how to, get in touch because you've been on my Instagram and stuff. And you and Kelly have been freaking amazing supporters. And just like,
And Kelly, by the way, Kelly, before we had the conversation, she left right before we started, but she wanted me to say hi to you. She's
oh,
like, if the time comes up, make sure you tell Ali I said
oh,
hi.
we'll do.
So
Yeah, we definitely have to. Like, I want to talk about more about the because you guys have like a farm thing you guys are doing with eco-friendly and all this. I was like, stuff's cool. The stuff that you guys are doing.
yeah, we enjoy trying different things. I mean, it's life's an adventure, and you just got it's up to you to like make the most of it and try different things.
Yeah.
And you really never know what's going to happen. And I'll tell you, going into stunt work many years ago, I would have never ever thought I would have done or worked towards some of the things that I've accomplished. And it's just, and I mean, even like when we first met, I think like knowing that you'd be the guy doing 3D printing and making an
R&D,
impact
yeah,
on that, or
podcasting. It's like a year ago. I never thought I'd be in podcasting. I'm doing that. It's
yeah,
like a freaking website to gaming to like motivation. Everybody's like, bro, you grew. Like, what the hell happened?
yeah,
I don't know what happened. It just somebody
yeah,
called John Alizea decided to, like, 'cause he was finishing up his UCF degree to decide to let's start a company. I don't talk with John often enough as I should because he's doing so much work on his own. I
yeah.
don't call him when I'm ready until I'm ready, and I'm like, hey, let's try this. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be doing half the stuff I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. You never know how one path leads to another. So that's why I say, like, go for it and explore those different paths because you
Mm-hmm.
never know how one might, just kind of open up for you.
True, exactly. But yeah, we'll have to get on again. I think get Kelly on and talk
Yeah,
to you guys some more. I'd love to sit down again,
definitely.
and I'm glad you were comfortable and you're like, let's do it. So I'm like,
Let's do it, man. Yeah.
cool.
Let's do it again and let's not wait a year. I mean, I don't know what you've got on your agenda, but I'd be happy to
Oh,
talk
dude,
with you
it's,
about
you know what?
anything,
It's not
anytime, man.
it's not that. It's just getting people with their schedule and sitting down and like, because I'm just recording on a laptop and a freaking recorder next to me with a microphone, and everybody's like,
Okay.
"Oh, it's cost so much money." I'm like, "It costs nothing to do a podcast. It just takes time." I was like, "I'm the one who's got to do all the edit. Now I got to do all the editing
Sure.
and getting everything together." But oh man, it's always a pleasure, man. It's just great to having people like,
Same.
let's hop
Virtual
on.
handshake here.
High five. High five. Oh my God, it's
But
been so cool to learn more about you though. It's like we haven't
same.
spoken in quite a while and it's been great to for you and her to like even give me the quick like or love. It's like, hey man, like what are you up to? I'm like, I'm trying this. Keep at it. I'm like, I am, but I lost a notebook to this. Which is funny, I lost a notebook a year ago from 3D printing, but I had so many notes and
Oh
couldn't
gosh, that's
find it.
rough.
And I was like, oh, so how do I program this? So it's like now I have it all written down on digital, and so now I have it on like many different places. And thank God the iPhone has Notepad and Windows has
Yeah.
stuff. So I have so many notes now which I need to share with people, but I'm kind of stingy on that too because it takes a lot of research, and I'm not making anything from it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
but
Got to
yeah,
balance that out.
yeah, it's just getting everything done correctly and taking my time with
Hmm.
everything. And
Yeah.
R&D takes time, and people are like, I want to see results. It's like it takes time, but
Yeah.
and
Got to do it right.
yeah, exactly. Like as you were stating, you start from a spin kick and then move to a hill kick.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you want to, if as you're editing, if you want to like dig into anything more and you want to reschedule something, I'm happy to do
Will
that.
do. I think this is going to be a
Um,
great one for everybody. I think everybody's going to be
cool.
pretty excited.
Awesome.
They don't know who you are, but they will soon. So I was trying to like, oh,
Here I
this
am.
is Ben. But yeah, we'd definitely love to sit down for another one and yeah, probably you
Sure.
and Kelly and talk about some farming and stuff that you kind of what you guys learned from your traveling and what it's been like to live there and now in Colorado.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, most definitely. But yeah, man, I'm gonna call it here and wish you guys nothing
Okay.
but the best. And if you could,
Same.
I'm
Same.
gonna wish everybody to keep an open mind if you could.
Yep.
So I'm gonna,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Hey, everybody, keep an open mind. You never know what's possible.
there you go. All right, guys, have a good one. As Ben said, keep an open mind. Have a good one. I will talk to you later, sir. Have a great one. Thank you.
You too.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Ali.
Be safe, man.
I loved He-Man. And one year for my birthday, I got all the He-Man gear. I got the action figures, the big wheel. I got the He-Man underwear and the sword and the shield. I used to love to run around pretending that I was He-Man. One thing I do remember about He-Man is that he was just a regular guy until he needed to take control of a situation. When he did, he would raise his sword just like this, and he would say, "I have the power!" And he would transform and use all of his potential. And I see a lot of folks in here with a lot of potential. And I invite you to stand up with me so we can begin to transform together. Go ahead and grab your imaginary He-Man sword and raise it up. And on the count of 3, we're going to say, "I have the power," together. 1, 2, 3. I have the power. That was fantastic. I really felt the power from you guys. Thank you so much. Please have a seat. Really great job. Now, as I got a little older, I didn't have the sword anymore. And I began to forget that I had the power, which also meant that I didn't transform or use the most of my potential. And then I started to use ready. Reflecting, evaluating, developing, and implementing to make sure that I had my power and was using the most of my potential. Here's how it started. After 14 years of martial arts training, I received an invitation to World Championships. This was a pro-am competition, so it was professional and amateur competitors competing against one another. This invitation changed my life. I had been training in martial arts for 14 years and done so many competitions, so I thought I knew what to do. So I began doing the normal routine, practicing, training, all the way up until the competition. We arrived the night before and walked into this room that was enormous. It was at least 3 times bigger than any competition I had been to before. As I looked out across the room, 10-foot by 10-foot squares were taped all across the floor, except for one in the middle. It looked like a boxing ring, and I'd never seen that before. What was it? As I reviewed my competition details, I realized that I would be competing in forms, routines, in that ring the next morning. Cool. The morning of the competition, I got up, and it did not take long for me to realize the professionals from the amateurs. I was doing karate, and they were doing ninja. I felt a little out of place. Later that day, in fighting, you could say I deserved some respect for how clean I was able to get those floors. I was disappointed in my results in both. Have you ever felt that way? You've done all the things that you were supposed to do, your training, practice. You've met all the expectations and you just don't feel like it was quite good enough? On the long 5-hour car ride home, I spent time reflecting on my performance. Honestly, it was probably the next couple of weeks, too. I was really disappointed in my performance at World Championships. I thought that was my shot. When I thought about the performance, a lot of the competitors did backflips, and I could do backflips, but I didn't do any. Some did what we call extreme kicks, and I could do some extreme kicks, but I didn't do any. I had trained in tumbling for 6 years at this point, and the original purpose to train in tumbling was to integrate that into my martial arts routines. And the only thing that I'd done with my tumbling at this point was to try and impress girls. and that wasn't working well either. I realized that I had just been coasting. I had developed skills and abilities over the years that I was totally ignoring and just doing the usual routine. It can be the same in the workplace when we get caught in doing just the normal routine. There's no doubt that so many of us are busy between emails and phone calls, meetings, working with coworkers or customers. Have you taken a moment to think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how that's impacting you? Chances are, if you took a moment to step back and reflect on your experience, you would see a lot of possibilities for positive improvements. As I began to evaluate my performance, I thought back to before the competition. The feedback that I received was that I had good stances, good follow-through. I had snap, power, focus, timing. I met all the marks. But when I started to think about all that I was capable of, what would my best performance look like if I took some of that tumbling skills that I had, and I took some of those extreme kicks, and I mixed them together into a routine, and it had good balance? That is what a good routine would look like for me. So I realized what I had done before, it was average. In the workplace, we have the minimum standards and expectations. Our leaders and managers expect us to meet those standards. But if you think about your skills and your abilities and the things that you're capable of, are you making the most out of your experience? The next thing I did was start developing a plan. I decided I was going to go back to World Championships the next year. I decided I was going to focus on one thing. Instead of doing forms and fighting, I was going to do forms, because all of my skills and abilities all pointed to that, and that's where I could make the biggest impact. I developed my plan and included the right people, those individuals who could give me the type of feedback that would help me move forward. One person I connected with was a gymnastics coach. I didn't have a lot of space in that 10 by 10 ring to get a running start, so I needed to figure out how to get more power out of my tumbling. By including the right people, I was able to ensure that we were moving forward together, and by sharing a plan, we were on the right path. In the workplace, it's no different. I would encourage you to develop a plan and share that with the right people. Think about your work situation. Chances are there's skills and abilities that you could integrate into your work that would make a better impact for you, and in turn, make a better impact for those working around you. By sharing your plan and the things that you're interested in, the goals you're going toward, you could include the right people so that you are driving the feedback process and not simply waiting for somebody to tell you what they're expecting from you. Align your path so you can move forward together. Next, I had to implement. I began training at the karate gym, practicing at the tumbling gym, and on the weekends, I would go out to the park and practice my routine. I was taking all the things that were available to me and integrating that into my regular routine. I would try something. If it didn't work, I'd make adjustments and try it again. I was reflecting, evaluating, developing, and implementing, and I was seeing some good results. When you think about your experience at work, are the things that you're planning, that you've been developing, are those important enough for you to follow up on? We need to take action before we can get the feedback on that action, both from ourselves and from those leaders, managers, and possibly coworkers, the trusted friend that can help give you the feedback to move you forward. The next year, I went back to World Championships, and I felt like I won the championships when I placed 5th. I never thought I'd be so excited about placing 5th. But I knew I had done for myself what nobody else could do for me. I was the best me. I gave my 100%. I gave my all into doing that, and I didn't feel average. I felt great. I felt awesome. And that was my reward for that competition. Are you ready to make the most of your power and unleash your potential? Because only you know exactly what you need to make the most of your experience and be the best you. Thank you.